Okay, my name is Sam Goldberg. I'm born in Poland. I'm in the early 60s. I attended gymnasium in the city of Piotrków, and then I attended a textile designing school. After graduation, I worked in the city of Łódź, one of the finest textile industries. My father was, I come from a religious family, with 3 children in the family, an older sister, myself, and brother. My father by profession was a brewmaster. He was a religious man, but a modern religious man. My mother was completely in the opposite direction because she was more conservative and more reformed in the Jewish way. Well, in my house, my father wanted me to be a theologian. His dream was that I become a rabbi some of these days, or a very learned man. He married me off to a very rich, wealthy Jewish family. Now, the only thing I have to do is sit at home and learn the Talmud. Be a nice, that's all his dream was. My ideas of life was completely different. My ideas of life was to be an actor. I love the acting profession. My mother's ideas was for me to become something different than a theologian. Okay, was confused, and the family was always fighting about what should become of Shmuel Goldberg.
Were you the first child?
No, I was the second. My sister was the oldest. So my mother decided they're going to send me to a school, which I said before, to a textile school, and I went to the city of Łódź and I worked there. My mother always used to say to my father, "You are a brewmaster. It's the only profession, a Jewish brewmaster in Poland. Why don't you teach your son to be a brewmaster too? It's a very good profession." My father always used to say, "This is a profession for a goy, not for a Jew." This was the answer. All right, years passed by. 1939, I remember when I was working in the city of Łódź, I had a telegram that my mother got very sick. It was right before the war. And I came home to the city of Piotrków, and I find my mother in a hospital, very sick. They didn't have any good care in this small town. It was not a little town. It was a smaller town than the city of Łódź. You know, city of Łódź
was this like 1938?
1939, right before. I get into it because I want to get into the 1939. My mother was very sick, in which we couldn't find good help in the city. We decided to take mother into the city of Łódź, to one of the largest hospitals in the city. The surgeon in this town was a doctor by the name Dr. Piotrków. He was a friend of the family. We decided we were going to put her in this hospital. We took mother into a hospital. I was the only one who went with my sister with mother to the city of Łódź. In 1939, September the 1st, in the morning when my mother was supposed to be operated, the war broke out. The war broke out. They couldn't operate on my mother. It took a few days. The German occupied the city of Łódź, and the hospital was occupied by the Germans. And all the soldiers, they took all the private people who were staying in the hospital to be operated on, or sick people. They put all of them in 1 or 2 rooms. And the rest of the hospital was occupied by Polish soldiers who were, were shot on the front lines. They brought them in there. In order for me to be able to visit my mother daily, which I want to be close to, I loved her.
Take your time.
Take it easy.
So Dr. Piotrków gave me a piece of paper stating that I am an orderly in the hospital, which was easier for me to get into the hospital because the German guards didn't let in. Being an orderly in the hospital, I had to do some work what an orderly does, and I didn't know anything what has to be done. Dr. Piotrków coached me. He said, if we have an operation, you're going to stand there, you're going to help me out, give to this and this. Those days was not like today. I remember the German doctors used to come and check the soldiers, especially the Polish soldiers came from the front line. The only thing, if a soldier had a bullet in his leg, the only thing the German doctor used to say, abschneiden, cut it off. Then no treatment, just cut it off. So the first time I remember, they brought in a few soldiers, and Dr. Piotrków had to operate on the soldiers, cut off the legs. The first time I was watching this operation, I fell on the floor. I couldn't take it. Second time, the third time, I got already used to it. You know, first time, second time, I got used to it. All right. A few days, I talked to the doctor. This was already in September, I don't remember dates exactly. I know it was in the month of September. Dr. Motkevich notified me that my mother going to be operated, except we need some blood. So how are we going to get blood? So I volunteered to give blood. So when my mother heard that I have to give blood, she was screaming, hollering. She said, I don't want my child's blood. I just don't want it. I just this, and I told her, don't worry about it, he's not going to take it, we're going to find some, just lies and lies over and over and over. Finally, they took my blood and operated on her. Going to the hospital every day was an ordeal, because the Germans were standing in the streets and capturing people to do the dirty work for them. So every time I used to go in the morning to the hospital, I have to watch, so I'm not caught by Germans, because I'm not going to be able to see my mother. So finally, I made it, day after day. In the nighttime to go home, you couldn't go home, stay late in the hospital, because the only time you could go on the street was till 5 or 6 o'clock, was a spur. One morning, I come into the hospital. This was a day before Yom Kippur. I came in the morning. I walk into the room. The bed was empty. A lady was laying next to her. She says to me, open up the drawer, and there has a package for you there. Where is my mom? Nobody wants to tell me. Finally, I found Dr. Motkevich. I said, well, he said, Sam, your mother died on the operating table. Now, here I am. Where is she? Where I cannot find her. Oh, they put her down there in a little house outside the hospital. It's supposed to be like a place where they keep the dead. I walk in there. My poor mother was like, she was laying on asphalt, covered up with a blanket, nothing there. A German guard was standing outside watching. He said, who are you? I said, I want to see my mother. He says to me, are you the dog from this bitch? A Volksdeutsch. You know what a Volksdeutsch is? I said, yes, my mother. I walk in there, she was laying on the floor by herself. I open up, sure it was my mother there laying. Now comes a question, I have to bury my mother, I have to give her a Jewish burial. So what did you do? It's a day before Yom Kippur. How you go about it? I have aunts, uncles. People were afraid to go out of the cemetery. People were afraid to walk the streets. Now here you have to make the tachrichim, you have to make the sovat, you know, to do it. So I ran home, I gave the bad news to my sisters and my uncles, which, you know, the situation I had was, I was the only one running back and forth because everybody was afraid to go out there. Finally, I got together a few women in this particular apartment, and we find some linen, white linen, we cut it up, and we made it a sovat. Now is our question, how are we going to go to the cemetery? We have to go to the cemetery. So I ran out to the cemetery, and I told the guy who to take it to the cemetery, they used to have horses in the gullahs, you know, to take it out. He said, I'm not going to go. If you want it, I give you the horses, you pay me for it, you go it yourself. So I have one brave uncle. He said, he's going to go with me. Who went there. I went into this room, picked up I had one. Then we needed wood, you know, to bury her in. In those days, we didn't bury Jewish people in caskets. You know, we buried in wood, piece of wood. So I find some wood. I took my poor mother, put it on a piece of wood. Me, my uncle carried it out to the gula. And here's our situation you find yourself. According to the Jewish tradition, the survivor used to walk behind the gula. And always you find a Jewish person who goes and he says in Hebrew, Staka tatzel mimuves. If you give charity, save you from death. Here I am sitting on the top. The horse is going to the cemetery. And my uncle goes behind the gula. And nobody is there, even like in the Jewish tradition when a procession, funeral passed by, Jewish people used to close the doors and walk a few steps with the gula to say goodbye to the dead person. Here I am, sitting on top and going, nobody is there to walk a few steps. Nobody's there to say, Stuka Tatzel Bibelfest. I say, to this person, the woman I love so much deserved this. My mind came to thinking, my God, why? Finally I arrived at the cemetery, now I have to wash the body. I have to give it, according to Jewish tradition, I have to wash the body. So a few women were out there who were sitting there, they called the Hevre Kiddush of women. They were sitting out there to help me out. Of course, you pay them everything for them, that's what they're doing. Now we have to take out the body to dig the grave. So nobody was there, was just one guy there. Finally, I talked to him too. So I was digging the grave, helping dig the grave. Finally, we dig the grave. We had to go out to the Talish table, the room where the body is laying there, to take it out and take it to the grave. So me, my uncle, and this particular person, and 2 German guards go with us. I asked my uncle, what are they going with us? What are they afraid? What we're going to do here in the cemetery? We're going to steal some bodies? What is that with them? My uncle says to me, when I don't say anything, just let's go quiet. Well, finally, I put my mother in the grave. I covered it with everything. I did all this Jewish tradition, what's supposed to be done. When I went out there and I started, the German was standing outside and howling to me, mach doch schnell, 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 bring it up. So when I was working in the grave, covered it up, everything, he spit on me. Spit on me from the top. So the other German soldier says to him, leave him alone, his time will come too. So finally, when I covered up the grave, I went outside, standing, me and my uncle, not even my minion. I had to say Kaddish. Okay, after my burial, I get home. I couldn't get home to visit you because there was no transportation. This was Yom Kippur, a couple hours before people go to Kol Nidra. When I came home, my uncle says to me, a lot of people got together in one of the apartments. We're all going to say Kol Nidra. I turned around and looked at my uncle. I said, you want me to say Kol Nidra? For what? For what? To pray to God for what? For just burying my mother? Nobody was there. Then I was thinking for a moment. Maybe she wants me to. Maybe be a good time to do it. Maybe I should. Maybe now be an occasion to say Kaddish and somebody will say Amen, which I did. When a week passed by, we didn't have no transportation to go back home to our hometown because between the cities we couldn't travel. There was no transportation. We had to wait. Finally, we find out walking 50 kilometers was a little too hard. Finally, we decided, they told us the bus is going to run soon. So we went down to the depot a week later, and we went home to Piotrków, me and my sister. When we arrived at home, my father got very angry because we didn't let him know before what happened. We couldn't leave before because we have to sit Shiva in the city of Lodz. When we got home, my father was very mad why we didn't notify him. We couldn't, all those little things, what happened in our family. No, my father and my brother was sitting Shiva. We had a minion twice a day for neighbors. The German already occupied the city of Piotrków, of course. It was very hard to go out. My father, the first day, when we came home, after the Shiva, he went down to the brewery, and he saw the Germans occupy the brewery. The beer was start making beer for them. He never again went out of the house. He was so afraid. Here was the giant man, a 6-footer, a man who afraid of him to look at him. He was a very strong man by nature. All of a sudden, became like nothing, sitting all day long and praying to God. God will come and help. He didn't want to get out of the house.
What had you heard about the Germans by that point?
I had some uncles, they came from Germany in 1934. They were deported from Germany. When I asked him some question, my uncle, as a German Jew, did not believe it himself that the Germans are capable of doing this. You know what? He was under the Nuremberg laws, and Germans, sent him out. But always I used to tell him, I said, Uncle, I heard the Germans do this, they're going to do this, they're going to do this. The Jews going, he's like that, it's not so schlimm, it's not so bad, don't worry about it. I looked at him, I said, he was a German-born Jew. I said, well, how come you strongly so believe it? I said, this was the attitude of the German Jews. I had another uncle the same way. They just did not believe it. Matter of fact, when we were city of Lodz, right away the situation changed in Poland so badly that this German, the Poles who were in German descent, they call them Volksdeutsche, they was, like, for example, didn't have no bread. It was very hard to get bread. People used to have to stay in line. They were going around in line, was getting up 4 o'clock in the morning, staying in line. If finally you get into the door of the bakery, you had a loaf of bread, you walk out, you walk the street, they come over and took away your bread. You are Jew there, you are Hund, you brought some nichts zu fressen. You Jew, you cannot took away your bread. You were standing there for hours to get a piece of loaf of bread. They took away from you. And the Polish people, as such, were not to my great help to us. You cannot condemn a nation. The time what I have seen, what I went through, and I think my personal opinion, if not the nations of the world like Poland, Ukrainians, and some Lithuanians, they wouldn't give a hand as much for the German. Hitler probably could not accomplish the things what he accomplished. Because what I have seen in my past later, I will tell you, mostly the people who did do the crimes, committed the crimes, let's say in my city, Piotrków, in the ghetto, whatever it was, I have seen a lot of Ukrainian soldiers. I have seen a lot of Ukrainian soldiers. The orders were given by Germans probably, and they did it. So finally my father decided he wanted to go to the house. And we lived in a section of town, was a very nice section. I don't say we came from a wealthy family, a middle-class family. Rich Jew in Poland was a rich Jew. Everybody suffered very hard because we didn't have no rights to anything. We were merchants. We tried to make a living. So one made a little better living, the other one made a little all right. Everybody made a living, better or worse. My family made a living. I will not say they were wealthy people, we made a living. We lived in a nice section of town. One morning, I was knocked on the door. The Germans walked in there, and they gave us 24 hours. Even when they walked into the apartment, we lived in an apartment, when they walked in the apartment, they asked us, are you Jews? Because they didn't recognize. My father, didn't wear this long collar, with the round hats. He was a modern man. So he said, yeah, we're Jews. He gave us 24 hours to move out of the house. The story comes, in the same house where we lived on the second floor. On the first floor lived the mayor of the city. City of Piotrków was a socialist city. It was very seldom out. The whole city hall was socialist. And this mayor of the city, he met me on the steps going up. He was a teacher before. When I was going to school, he was my teacher. By the way, when I was going to school in Poland, I had to sit in a separate chair, on a separate bench with 2 other Jewish children. In the morning when they say the prayers, they told me to get out of the room. Okay? When I was a youngster, I remember, when I was 3 years of age, 4 years of age, I was playing with the children on the streets. The children used to call, hey, you Jews, you killed Jesus Christ. As a child, I didn't know. I came to my father, I said, who was Jesus? They told me I killed somebody. I actually didn't even know what they're talking about. And they were born with this hatred against the Jews, against the Jewish people. And the hatred was so great in the time of Easter, the Jewish section of town, they used to close their doors. They were afraid to walk on the streets because they preached to them that the Jews killed Christ. It was a very hard life of the Jewish people, even before Hitler came to power. Anti-Semitism was very great.
So about the mayor.
Yeah. So let's go back when they told us to move out of the house. So finally, when we moved out of the house, we had to find a place where to live, another place. So my father they went to the Jewish Gemeinde. Was already organized, a Gemeinde of Jewish people. A Gemeinde, this was like the Federation of Jews. They were running the Jewish people. One day they gave us an apartment in the Jewish section of town. We moved to the Jewish section of town. All right? We lived there for a while. Life was very hard. They gave us 2 rooms. We used to get rations from the Jewish Federation. Because
how large a family were you, Sam?
Then my mother was dead already. I had 1 brother and a sister. My brother, after my mother died, he could not stand the depression because a lot of people in those days used to run away to Russia. He got together with a few friends. And then one morning, we got up in the morning, he disappeared. And I'm still thinking my brother's alive. because in being in Jerusalem, I looked for him, and I thought I found him. In Hillel was just my my sister, my father, and myself. My father was afraid to go out of the house, no two ways about it. The only thing he was doing is sitting and praying, saying till him all day long, the Psalms of David, day and night. In the attitude he had, God will help, which was, I personally think, was very wrong. That didn't, the closeness of the family tightness was so great that a lot of Jewish boys probably will go out in the forest and fight. The parents, in a way, hold them back. In a way, they hold them back. Because the attitude was like, for example, they throw us out from the house. And my father used to say, I said, Dad, what's going to happen? He said, well, it's a big difference where we live, so we live here. Then an order came, they need X amount of zlotys to give to the Germans. So let's pay him. All right, what can we do? Let's pay him. The order came to give away the radios. Everybody, we're not going to listen to the radios. Everything what they did to us was acceptable by certain segments of people. What the young generation, some of them did play with it, and some of them did not. Some of them ran away to Russia, they left their families behind. And some of them went into hiding or to underground later, not in the time of the ghettos. And then you have an element of people, our own people, they became policemen in ghettos. They became, they worked like supposedly, to keep order in the ghettos and so on and so on. I don't have nothing against those people because somebody had to keep law and order. Some of them were good ones, some of them were bad ones. Some of them thought maybe because he wear a hat, he's some better than the next person. And some of them felt I had to just survival. That's all. He did everything possible what he could. So being there, and this was 1940, I remember, 40. One night was living right in there. Somebody knocked on the door, aufmachen. This same knock on the door scared my sister and myself too. It was the middle of the night. The sound of the booth walking in the hall and the knock on the door was so scared, it was so frightening. It's unbelievable to describe the fright what we had. Opened the door, a German Volksdeutsch was standing in the door. He looks at me, he said, Schmuller, you remember me? I said, no. He said, I'm Karl Brunner. I said, Karl Brunner, who are you? Oh, yeah, I remember. Boy, I was going to school with. He was a German Volksdeutsch. He tells me, I said, listen, let me tell you something. A couple of days from now, the Germans are going to take about 1,500 to 2,000 Jewish boys out of this town and send them to Lublin. I just came here to warn you. A friend of mine, get the hell out of here. And don't worry about your father and sister. I will try to help him as much as I can. He looked around back and forth and walked out. Meanwhile, before this happened, this mayor of the city, our neighbor who lived downstairs, he met me on the steps. He says to me, Shmulek, if you want an Aryan paper, you come up to the city hall and I will see to it I get you one. If you want one for yourself or for your mother, for your father and for your sister, I get you some Aryan papers. The moment when he told me that didn't occur to me, well, I'm going to go for, everybody knows me anyway, but Shmulek, how can I have some different papers, living in the city? This day when this happened, I said to myself, oh, now is the time for me to do something. Sure enough, the ghetto was already a ghetto. We still could go outside because Piotrków supposedly was one of the first ghettos. They gave us some white armbands. We have to wear it. Now I took off my armband and went to the city hall. Matter of fact, he told me to give him a photograph, and I gave him my photograph, and he gave me a passport named Zygmunt Jankowski, a man who was born the same age with I. His name was Zygmunt Jankowski. No, he was dead already. He died, and he gave me this paper. When I have this paper in my hand, I said to myself, now is the time to do something with my father. My father and sister did not want to accept to get some false papers, and they didn't want to go to Russia. They just felt this is their home, nothing will happen that badly, like people are talking about. It's not so bad, so what? Whatever happened will happen. But this Brunner came to our house and told me what's going to happen. I met a couple other of my friends who also had Aryan papers already made, and we took off in the direction of Warsaw. We heard then already about the creation of an underground, what they call AK, was already working in this Warsaw. We tried to get to Warsaw. On the way to Warsaw, we had to go in different direction because, you know, it was very hard to travel. The trains didn't run. So we came to a city of Otwock, then we came to a city of Falenice, then we came to Warsaw, Prague. We arrived in Warsaw, Prague. We tried to make contact with somebody in underground. Finally, we came across a person by the name Czarniecki. He said he can help us one way or the other, all right? So I tried. We talked to them a few days later. Finally, he said, you have to go, some of you have to go to Miss Mazowiecki and bring some ammunition back to Warsaw. Now you can imagine, he tells me I should go. I was a coward, afraid even to look a German in the eyes. I took the train, and I went to Mies, and believe me, on my way back, I thought I'm going to die, because every station, the German Volksdeutsch used to come out to the train and check or anybody carries some food or other kind articles in to Warsaw, you know, for black marketeering. They didn't want so interested so much in black marketeering as much they were interested to grab something for themselves. This was their main objection. Finally, I went and I came back, all right? We will spend a lot of time in Warsaw. Then, all of a sudden, they created the Warsaw ghetto. And they had signs all over the city that the Gentiles and the Jews have to change apartments. You know, it was little signs all over the city. So the people who used to live in Prague, the Jews, had to exchange apartments with people to live outside the ghetto. Finally, I think it was 1941, the Warsaw ghetto was closed. And I was standing in Prague, I didn't get into the ghetto, I was outside. This Czarniecki, my two friends, were still living in Prague, gave us orders we have to go to a little city called Dąbrowa. This is not far away from Mies Mazowiecka. The reason they sent us over there, when the Polish army, when the Russian attacked Poland on one side and the German on the other side, and the Polish army fled, they burned a lot of guns and ammunition. Our job was to find the connection with those farmers and to try to get to buy or to try to get the ammunition to bring back, not to Warsaw, but to bring back to Falenice. When I arrived in Dąbrowa, I could not, right away, we tried to find a place where to live. I was there for 2 days, was staying in a hacienda. In the middle of the night, we arrived there. It was raining. We were walking from Warsaw to Dąbrowa, walking in the middle of the night. We just walked. And I was supposed to be there as a Gentile, you know. I couldn't think of myself. You know, first of all, I didn't know that I walked into a little city, was about 50 families there, all living around the marketplace, all the type of merchants, was tailors, shoemakers. What they were doing, they were going out to farmers for a week and repair what in the farmer's house. Let's say the shoemaker made some shoes or repair, the tailor was fixing clothes for those people. It was a very quiet little city, a little city what you thought there don't know any wars. There was nobody there. There was one Gentile. It was the fireman. Then was one policeman. And then the watch, you know, the night was watches, but people had to stay outside here in case of fire in the little town. When I arrived in the little town, we asked the farmer who was walking with him, with his wife from Warsaw, I asked him, where is a place where we can stay overnight? So he pointed out, he said, here's a restaurant, his name is Yoshke, he said. You knock on the door, he probably let you in. So we knocked on the door. It was raining, it was soaking wet. 3 of us, soaking wet. We knocked on the door, so we heard some commotion in there. Somebody comes into the door asking Jewish, who is there? I said, some people want to get in. Who are you? I said, we're Jews from Warsaw. Soon he heard Jews, he hollered back to his wife, he said, Leah, Jews are here from Warsaw. Open the door fast. They opened the door, we walked in there, it was a long room. In the back of the room they lived. He was there with his wife, one child. She right away, it was Friday night, I remember, it was Sabbath. She ran out from the bed, made a fire, in the stove, and the stove had a pipe going from one end all to this room. She got out of the bed, and she told us to take our little clothes. She made a fire. The pipe was red hot, and hang up our clothes. We hung up our clothes, we went to bed. He went into his bar, brought in a bottle of vodka, and he poured for everyone. Didn't ask no questions. Just poured everybody out a glass of vodka. He poured it down and said, "You boys go to sleep. We'll talk tomorrow." This is Jewish heart. Next day in the morning, it was about 11 o'clock. I remember exactly because I went there, had a little clock hanging there, and I asked him, I said, "Yoski, what time is it?" He said, "It's 11." I said, the whole community of the Jews, the whole little town, came to see the strangers from Warsaw. And everybody right away felt like we're somebody else. A town where the people, like I said, made a hard life, very hard living, what a hard kind of living. Finally, right away in the Hasanya, they called the little bar, they decided, this guy goes to live with Srul, this goes with sleep, going to live with this one going to live with this one. Okay, they didn't know the Jews that we came here for a purpose. You know, we just didn't tell them. I was assigned to live with a guy by the name Srul, may he rest in peace. A tailor, a little short fella with a little goat beard. He was wearing glasses made from wire. His wife's name, may she rest in peace, was Sura. A little boy, Sruliki. I slept. They made a bed for me on the tailor table to sleep. So the first day he asked me, the Jewish people in the town asked us what happened in Warsaw. We told them it's a ghetto and the people lived in a separate place. They did not believe it. They could not believe it what we tell him. Then finally I said to my friend David, I said, "You know what? Let's stop talking about it because this makes him feel no good. Listen, they live a quiet life here. They still do business every Tuesday and Friday. The farmers from the little town used to come to the market, used to go into Yoshki's bar and sit down and have a little drink, you know, and talk about buying corn and selling corn, buying a horse and selling a horse, knocking in their hands back and forth. When it came Saturday, it was the most beautiful scene a man can imagine in his life. The poorest man in the city to the richest who owned the windmill. All were the same, the happy Jew, working in those nice black chalets with the girdle around, some of them with the talisman into the arms, going pride to the shul, pride with their heads up, even didn't have to, nothing was hard to make a living. And they have guards there every night. Somebody else, neighbor, had to stay guards in the middle market to watch the little, nothing happened. So when it came through time, after all, I'm a guest in his house. She was doing everything possible what she could, find a potato, a little soup, a little bread to cook, whatever it is. After all, I said, "Srul, I'm going to stay for you." Okay. So I was taking the night watch. I was standing there, gave you a big coat, and they give you a horn. In case something happened, you have to blow your horn. I didn't know for a horn to blow, and I just prayed to God. Hope nothing happened in this town in the middle of the night. So I was standing there. Srul's wife, Srul, was pregnant. In those days, they didn't have any doctor. You know, the town didn't have a doctor. The only thing was a woman who delivered babies. One day, a few German trucks drove into town and asked the people, the Jewish people, they mind to deliver X amount of cows, X amount of this. They needed for them to be, if they don't get, they put them all in the marketplace. And the German soldiers supposedly went out, you know, you could see they had a ball with them laughing at the Jews with the long beards, used to come out and cut off the beards and the sisters. In this moment, when Srul's wife happened, she miscarried. And who had to deliver the baby, you know, it was very hard. She was in 7 or 6 months. They didn't know what to do. I knew a little bit from reading, not too much. Tried to help it. The woman from the house came in. They said, "You go out. You are a boy. You cannot stay here." I said, "Maybe I can help one way or the other. Water will do something." Anyway, a little boy was born. It was a yellow little child. I remember we fed him with some warm water and sugar to keep him, try to keep him alive. After a few days, the baby died. Strul made a little casket, put it under his arm with his young boy, and went out to the cemetery. When I looked at him, I saw Strul, the casket under the arm, snow, walking to the cemetery. I remind myself, I buried my mother not in a different way. So we start thinking, why? Why? If we only knew why, maybe we'd be happier to die. We didn't know why. One day, past a few weeks, I don't want to go into particularly what's happening in the little town. All of a sudden, we got our connections. And we had some ammunition to take back to Philadelphia. Now, the same farmer who told us, who gave us the ammunition, he put it in sacks of corn, 3 sacks with a little sled and a horse. And he told us we have to leave the city this Tuesday. Because on Wednesday morning, he heard from the Polish police from Minsk, they're going to take all the Jews out from Dąbrowa and take him somewhere, to Minsk or somewhere, I don't know where. Me, Zelig, and David, we knew what's going to happen, but we couldn't tell the people. We just told Strul, something, they're going to take you out. He says, oh, what, we fuhr noch Minsk. So we go to Minsk, Mazowiecz. We go here. So what, we're not going to stay here. So even if you try to tell something, people did not believe that things like this might happen. Finally, the farmer brought us his horse, and we asked him what's we're going to do when we get to Falenice. He said to us, leave the horse in the sled in this bakery there where you deliver this, whatever it is. He told us in this sack is a machine gun, a small Polish machine gun. Here's this and this. He told us all about all those things. My friend Zelig was a very brave man, because remembering him, he was after, he said, things what they're telling people what's happening, never going to happen to him. He was a very brave man. I had some experience with him. He was a very brave man. By traveling through the forest in the middle of the night, we had to cross a highway. You know, the sleds have iron onto it, okay? And the highway did not have any snow. When we got out from the ditch, across going the highway, the horse could not pull the buggy and the horse. Okay, the horse, we hollered to go across, we couldn't go across. Finally, the horse fell. So we have to get the horse up and get off the highway fast. Take long, a minute or so, we see from far away 2 little stars, like an automobile or a truck is traveling, and they call the Lublina Highway. I said to Zerdan, let's leave everything, let's run. He said, not in my life. We don't run. You take the horse and go down there to the ditch. You and David stay there. He took out his knife, cut off the sack where the machine gun was sitting, set up a machine gun, set up the machine gun. I said, Zelig, you're crazy. We're going to die with Germans. We're going to all die. He said, I die with them. Pamot nafshim pelishtim, like Samson said. If we die, let's die all together. And he hit me, and I went and he pushed me away. He said, you go away from here, let me see. And I was laying there waiting, and I was laying there. Believe you me, I just felt the end of, this is it. God, nisim happened. The truck instead to come straight to us, he turned in to Warsaw, turned away. So Zelig said, you see, I told you that. You see that? Don't worry about it. So, we loaded up everything. We came into Falenice. We delivered the goods. And it was people there from this group, supposedly the AK. I don't want to go in any particulars what happened in Warsaw before. I just want to make it a little short so you have the picture how it happened. I got in, we delivered the ammunition, and, they went up in the stove, we ate something, we dried up, was cold, we were sitting there for a couple hours. Then I needed to go to the restroom, I'm a human. I went outside in the forest, behind a tree. Another guy by the name, they call him the Yellow, Żółty in Polish. He was an officer. And he was standing next to me. He looks down on me. He said, you know, Zygmunt, I didn't know you were a Jew, you so-and-so. He says to me. I said, you crazy. He said, you're circumcised. You are a Jew. You see, in Poland those days, the only men who were circumcised were the Jewish people. The other population was not circumcised. And he says to me, if Frank finds out that you are Jewish, he'll probably knock your head off. You better find a way. Me, he said, you know me, he said, I'm a nice guy. He said, you don't have to worry about me. Now just watch out, Frank doesn't find out that you are Jew. When I told this to David says to me, Sam, now it's the time. Let's get the hell out of here before something very bad happens. Matter of fact, we had to leave there too because they shot a night before. Somebody shot the chief of police in the city of this little town. So we were strangers in town, and the first day, the first thing going to be the Germans going to look for us. So we better get out. So we got out. Now it's a question how to get into the ghetto. You have to get into the ghetto. We don't want to stay outside. I want to get into the ghetto. When we got into Warsaw, we met Czarniecki, and Czarniecki said to us, you know what? You better stay here in Prague. Don't go into Warsaw yet, because the ghetto is very bad. So, you know, he found us accommodation, excuse my expression, a bordello, a whorehouse. I find that during my period, before I got into concentration camp, what I tell you later, in this period, that's the people, the pimps, the prostitutes, the thieves on the streets, the low class, what we call the United States of people, were more helpful to Jews and non-Jews alike in time of distress than the most intelligentsia, what the Germans kill anyway, a lot of them, than any other segment of the race, of people. These were people you could rely a little bit more for help than anybody else. These were the people. Describing to you the way the bordello looked like, there was a big house in Prague where 400 Jewish families lived before. During this time when the Jews moved into the ghetto, the Gentile families moved in. This was on Brzeska Street, and not far away was a railroad station. The railroad station farmers used to come in from small towns, and this was the first house, and they used to bring in eggs, butter, bread, all kind of things, sell to those people in this big apartment house in the night. They used to sleep in the doorways till the next morning they could go to the train and go back home. Those people who lived in the apartment house, in turn, went and sold outside, you know, black marketeering. This whorehouse was in the doorway. You know, in this big hall, if you ever seen the way European houses are built, you know, you have a big doorway to walk in, and then you go in the backyard and go into the apartments. And she was also the caretaker of this apartment house, what they call the Strushka. Her name was Wojciechova, and the house's name was Wojciech. The house was, the bordello was cut off like this, the room in half, and we lived upstairs. The reason why she took, and the 3 prostitutes lived downstairs, and they used to service the German soldiers and all, and we lived upstairs. During the day, mostly time we were not there. She took us in because her attitude was, knowing Czarniecki that he is the Polish integrant, and he recommended us in there, we're going to liberate her. She was an alcoholic, constantly drinking, and constantly blaming the Jews. If not the Jews, the Polish people would not suffer as much as they do. Here I am, sitting there, gulping vodka, with a woman who talking about my people and my race, and listen all those remarks making. My friend Zainik says, you know what, this was going on for weeks. Let me knock him off all of the middle of the night, kill them all, and get the hell out of here. How much can you take? I said, listen, until we get some more or less where to go and what to do, let's stay here. I calmed him down. Now you can imagine the life in a bordello, what's going on, the drinking, and you're sitting upstairs, you don't want to make any noise, and you're not this, you know. And as a young person, you know how it is, and they seduce you, and here you are afraid even to talk to her, because you are circumcised. You're a man, you're circumcised. It's just a terrible thing. And this woman was only talking what the Jews did to Polish people. If not the Jews, they did this and that. Hitler did very good. If I find ever a Jew, he said, I kill him. I call the Gestapo and I kill him. She said that. A farm girl used to come there every night, and she used to carry eggs with her, you know, from the farm. And she had a man who used to buy from her. Was a steady customer. He used to buy all the eggs she used to bring. He used to sell it. This Wojciechowa one night went out to her and says to her, listen, you brought some eggs I want to buy from you. She said, I don't want to sell you any eggs because I have my customer. She came in, back to the house, was the English just to me. Zygmunt, she says to me, you go out there and seduce her. Find out if she's a Jew. I think she's a Jew, she said. You do anything possible to find out. If we find out she's a Jew, we're going to, right away, we call the Gestapo. I kill her myself. Those goddamn Jews and cussing. And I one guy said to her, Wojciechowa, leave her alone. Of course, speaking to her in Polish, I said, what do you want from her? Just leave her alone. A poor farm girl come to town. All right, next time she comes, she will say, no, you SOB to me. You better go out. You drunk like hell with a bottle in her hand and, you know, hollering. So Zelig says to me, you better go because, you know, don't make too much noise. I walked out there. How do I approach? We had a passport in the ghettos and outside. If you want to recognize a Jew, or he is actually a Jew, the passport was Amchu. Amchu. By the way, which the title of my book, what I write, is Amchu. So I said sitting there was a nice, blonde girl, dressed as a farm girl, of course, sitting there in the corner holding...
And what does Amchu mean?
Amchu means one of us. Amchu means one of us. So the girl was sitting there, and I said to myself, how can I approach her, you know, find out from her? I was sitting next to her. I said, what is your name, where you come from, what you do, you know, ask all kind of questions. Then I threw in the word Amchu. When I threw the word Amchu, she said, yo. Right away. I said to her, listen, don't ever come back here again. She has an eye on you. And get out in the morning, soon the train comes, and don't you ever come back here. Fine. She thanked me for it. And I made her lay down in case I figured that Wojciechowa will open up the door or something, look out, she sees me that I'm laying on the floor with her. She didn't. I came back and I said, hey, Wojciechowa, what are you driving? I was a farm girl. She was saying the patches and begging. What are you talking about? She's from Ger here, from a little town. Just forget about it. Just leave her alone. Are you sure? I said, yeah, I'm sure. My friend Zelig heard this, and when I went upstairs, and he asked me, is he Yiddish? I said, yeah, the Yiddish in my life. He just took out his gun. He said, let me kill them all up. I said, no. Just tomorrow morning, let's get out of here. Let's go into the ghetto. So, next day in the morning, we walk out. We try to go into the ghetto. How can you get into the ghetto? They have commandos of people going out from the ghetto to work outside, and then in the evening they used to bring him back in the ghetto. How can you get in? I saw people walking in and backing out. Zelig and David find a commander that got in with him, and I tried to find another commando of people that got in. So when I ran after him by the iron gate, the commander walked in, and I was, you know, like that. And outside you had German soldiers and Polish police, and inside you had Jewish police. So when I came, he said, the German asked, well, he gains, you know, where are you going? I said, I'm a Jew. The Jewish policeman inside who heard what I said, I'm a Jew, he started talking, hollering to me in Jewish, Läuf, run. So I ran into the ghetto, running, and the guy was running after me with a stick, supposedly hollering me, and he hollered, run, run, run fast, because, you know, I run. And finally, after a few streets I run there, I came down to Dąbrowa, watched all the streets there. I don't remember exactly which streets. I looked around myself. I saw dead people laying on the streets, covered with newspapers. And I just lifted up my hand to God and said, thank you. If I should die, I better die with my people. And I spent there for a while in the Warsaw ghetto.
How long were you in the ghetto?
In Warsaw ghetto, was about 2 weeks. I couldn't take it any longer. After I calmed down with my buddies, we calmed down, and we jumped the fence was a fence. They had fences around the Warsaw ghetto with glass on top. So the only way we could jump it is to get into a house where the window was close to the fence, which we did on Piotrków. And early in the morning we jumped. And when we jumped the wall, outside Polacks were waiting, and they're hollering. Jews ran out from the ghetto. And we were running, and they were running after us because they got paid for it, whatever they gave them for it, to watch out for, you know, the clothes, whatever the Jew was captured, got for it. Finally, we got into a house. And we went in the cellar there, and we spent there for a few hours. And then a German soldier didn't give up, or was what they call him, Schutzpolice, a Schutzpoliceman, came down and he was looking for us. And Zelig did not have no choice. We stabbed him and killed him in the cellar. And we got out very quietly on the streets of Warsaw as people were walking. The only thing, we were afraid somebody will be after us. Zelig and David, I said to them, now I have to leave you boys. I have to go home to Piotrków and see what my father and sister are doing. So I said goodbye to Zelig and David, and I went to the railroad to go home to Piotrków. When I arrived in the railroad train, I find out before that a lot of volunteers, Polish volunteers, gone to Germany to work for the Germans. They used to capture a lot of young people, too, for the Germans to go to work on the farms in Germany. When I got to the station, Schutzpolizei came across and stopped me for paper. And when I saw him coming across to me, I said to myself, oh, my God, this is it. Who knows? He asked me for the papers. I showed him the papers. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Piotrków. I want to register with my brother to go to Germany to work. He said, oh, are you such a good boy? He said to the guy to let me out to the train. I got on the train, and finally I made it to the city of Piotrków. When I came to Piotrków, now I had a hard time to get into the ghetto. I had to get into the ghetto to find my parents. I didn't know where my father and sister lived. Outside the city, I was afraid to walk around too much because everybody in the city, most of the people in the city knew me, who I am. So I was afraid, the experience what I had already in Warsaw, I was afraid the same experience I might go through in Piotrków. I waited through the night, and finally I got into the ghetto. When I went to this old apartment where my father and sister used to live, was outside the ghetto already. They had to move somewhere else. So finally asking around people in town, because they brought in already people from small towns. There were so many strangers in Piotrków from different towns, but they liquidated, they brought everybody into Piotrków ghetto. When I got in, finally somebody told me where my father lived. Of course, I find my father and sister living in one room. In the next room, another family was living. You know, the happiness was, when I left Warsaw, I had my gun with me. I came home, and I was, you know, my father was very happy to see me. And I saw what's going on in the ghetto. I did not believe my eyes, what's going on in the ghetto. I had my gun with me. I had my papers with me.
What was going on there?
They were capturing people, asking every day for more money from the Jewish Gemeinde. If the money was not delivered, they used to take hostages, 10 or 12 or 15. They used to hang him. They had a black wagon. They used to go every day to the forest. Somebody from what arrested a Jew or somebody used to the forest to shot him. The Jewish people used to be afraid to go out. The Jewish Gemeinde. Did
you see some of the hangings?
I have seen in the hangings in the market. I have seen Iraq, but my experience was before I have seen how they shot people. I was called to dig a grave for a Polish. I have seen it. I was there. I have seen it with my own eyes. I have seen what they were giving no money. The hustlers used to send him to put him in jail, and then from jail in the morning they used to send him out to the forest. But every time we used to see the black wagon, we knew somebody else going to be shot. When I came to the ghetto one evening, I want to bring up a point how our people react to different situations, what happened to me personally. In the evening, you know, I came home, I had my gun, I was standing in the night, and I standing with my father at night. So want to take out I always clean my gun. I always was afraid when I had to use, it might get stuck. So I took out my gun. In fact, my father saw this gun. First thing came to his mind, he said, get out of my house and take this gun with you. I said, Father, why? You're going to bring a disaster for the whole ghetto. If they catch this gun here in this house, the whole ghetto, all the Jews going to die. I said, Dad, Abba, we're all going to die anyway. Just please, let's have something in case we... Said, no, get out of the house or throw away this gun. I went out. I didn't want to make any scenes. I was happy to see him. I came home, I went down, and I buried the gun in the backyard with my papers, what I had. I buried down there. I came, I asked me, what did you do with the gun? I said, I threw him in the latrine. The thinking what the people had was just impossible for me to apprehend. I said to myself, why? Why are you afraid of? We're going to die anyway. Look what's going on. They took away your radio. They took away this. They make you move 3 times. The furniture, you don't have any wood to burn in the house. But you used to burn in the furniture.
What finally happened in the ghetto?
They liquidated the ghetto.
Were you there when it was liquidated?
I was there when they liquidated the ghetto.
What happened right at that point of liquidation?
What happened at that point, when they liquidated the big ghetto, they had 2 ghettos. They liquidated the big ghetto. At that point, they used to take out the Jews street by street. Okay? Ukrainian soldiers used to come in.
Taking them where?
Take him to an Umschlagplatz.
What's that?
A place where all used to get together. You know, the city of Piotrków was a marketplace.
Square.
A square. Now this square, they used to, of course, whatever they did with them, I don't know, because I have not been there. Because to me, I had what they call a working permit. In the city of Piotrków, they organized 3 places for Jewish people to work. All right? They have a glass factory, 2 glass factories, and 1 furniture factory. And the people, the Gemeinde, tried to organize, so a lot of people were taking there to these places to work, and the rest of them was sent to, matter of fact, to Treblinka.
What happened at that point of liquidation? They started to say they were taking them out street by street?
Yeah, they were taking out, let's say, 2 or 3 streets at a time. If it never couldn't go out, was a spur. Everybody couldn't go out on the street.
What happened to you at that point?
That point to me happened, I had a working permit. And the Germans and the Jewish police came to this house and tell everybody down in the yard, okay? So everybody went down to the yard. Of course, I had a working permit. The Ukrainian soldier was standing around us, and they tell us, we have to take our belongings and go. So everybody who has a working permit has to go on this side, and everybody who doesn't have a working permit has to go on this side. My father went over to this Ukrainian soldier and said, please let me talk to my son, just for a minute. So I went over to my father, says to me, you know, I know, my son, what's going to happen. I can feel it in my bones. He says to me, maybe in the years past, I tried to be harsh with you. Now, I want you to do something for me. Please, he says to me, do me one favor before I go. Don't be an actor. It's a disgrace for a Jew. Secondly, you have to give me the key scarf, which I shook hands, a binding. Then he says to me, now, I'm not asking you for the key scarf. I just beg of you. Pick a day in the year. Light a candle and say, God is after me. That was the last words I had for my father. Then they took me out to this Kara. I was assigned to a glass
We're going
factory.
to stop for a moment.
They're going to change the tape now.
All right.
One.
In small ghetto, I was taken to a concentration camp called, a working camp called Blizhiny. It was different segment. There was shoemakers, tailors, and cabinet makers. Spending there for a while, there came a point they want to liquidate it because supposedly they want to take us into another camp. I didn't know where we were going. They took us on our Piotrków all together, and they took us to the train. They put us on train. We came in. I saw when we came into Birkenau. When we came to Birkenau, the people took us off from the train. One of the people says to us, "You are very lucky. Mengele is not here today." I mentioned about Mengele, I didn't know what he's talking about. Mengele, who knows Mengele? You're very lucky. You all go to the Klausung, means to the bed, taking a bed and be shaved off. Since we came from our working camp, when you work in our working camp, Arbeitslager, they fed you a little better than the average camp because you did some work for them. So when going to the Klausung, which they call our hay, you know, and the Klausdas, they put us into showers and this, we saw flames coming out from chimneys. We didn't know. People tell us, you know, the guys who used to shave their head, they tell us, "Oh, do here, you come here, you never get out of here," you know, talking this kind of stuff. We said, they're crazy. Finally, after the showers, they give us some clothes, and I went into the quarantine. It was a segment of Birkenau camp quarantine. Being in the quarantine for 2 weeks, they tried to tattoo numbers on everybody's hand. I tried to run away. We got acquainted with a couple there, a Polak. He thought I'm a Polish boy. He always tried to tell me, "See, listen, if you don't have a number on your hand and you want to go into work," he said, "if I kept you, you're going to go over there." He pointed to the chimney. I looked at him. I said, "Hey, the guy is crazy. What he's talking about? They're burned here alive." I said, "Come on, don't tell me this. I never heard of it." One day, I was standing there in the line on Appellplatz, and some German officers came across, and they talked to people, asked who come from twins, who had an Aryan father or an Aryan mother, who does this, you know, all that kind of question. In my mind, right away came through something. Oh, he has a chance. I tell him my father was Aryan, my mother was this, maybe I get out of there. So I tried to step out from the line. This couple, this Blockaltist, they was going behind the Germans. When I stopped trying to step out of the line, he pushed me back in the line. When he pushed me back in the line, I didn't know why. I was just trying to get out myself again. After they left, a few boys got out from the line, and they took him away somewhere. He called me into the block, and he says to me, "Call me names, you SB, you stupid idiot. You know, if you tell him you have a Aryan mother and Aryan father, you know, they're going to take you to Auschwitz for experiment." I said, "Experiment? What kind of experiment?" He said, "You don't know what's going on." I gave away, "You idiot, you don't know what's going on." He said, "You better try to get a number, because they're going to tattoo today in this and this block. You better stay in line to get a number." So of which I listened to him already. I got in. They tattooed my own number. After 2 days being in quarantine, which was selections day after day, and I still didn't know what selection means. Was a spare, for example, they closed all blocks. Nobody could go out. If one block they walked in, they took out some people who didn't know where they're going. So this was selection. I didn't know. Next day, they took me, 2 days later, they took me to Lager C, means working camp. I was assigned to Block 24. And when I came to Block 24, you know, the block was like split in the middle with a long oven, and one half was the newcomers when came. In the other half, I saw some people, you know, striped suits, which we didn't have. I didn't have a striped suit. I had a civilian suit with stripes, you know, painted all over. And of course, you know, and I didn't know what's going on there. I saw those boys on the other side. They're eating so good. They drink vodka. They have salamis. They have cheese. On the other side, I was hungry, of course. Well, I asked a guy, "Give me a piece of bread." So he gave me a piece of bread. A little soup. He gave me this. I said, "Where are those boys getting this type of food?" I didn't know. I went to work in the railroad commander that took me out. It was very, very hard work. Came home dead. When I came home in barracks in the nighttime, I was feeling, the first thing I did, get this little soup piece of bread and lay it down on the plate. Just try to forget about it.
Had you yet seen Mengele?
No, I did not see Mengele yet. And when I was laying there, I got acquainted with a boy who worked on who lived on the other side in the barrack. I said to him, what kind of command are you working? And he said, they're called Transport Commander Canada. I said, what is Transport Commander Canada? He said to me, this is a transport when people come in, we take them off from the train. He said, oh. He said, you know the capo. The capo from this commander was from the city of Lodz, and I knew him from before. He was sent to Birkenau. He did something wrong in the ghetto, and he came in there in 1942, and he became capo of this commander. So this guy says to me, this boy says to me, Shlomo is his name, he said, why don't you go and talk to David? Maybe we're going to need somebody in the commando. I said, okay, I'll go with it. What happened? He said, oh, they took out a couple of guys today, they took him somewhere else. I'm not knowing anything what's going on whatsoever. I went over to this couple and I said, David, you know me from Lodz, I'm so-and-so. He said, USB, and hit me with this stick over the head. Go to hell, he knocked me over the head, pushed me away. I said, I want to work in this commando. I see you guys have so much to eat, so much to drink. Why don't you take me into this commando? He said, go to hell, go away, things like that. So this Shlomo went over to him, he talked to him, he said, listen, we have an opening, why don't you take him in? You know him from Lodz, take him in, the commander. Why not? Let him get in, this and that. Right? Couple came over and said, okay, you come over on this side, you work in this commando. He went out, this wasn't daytime, he went out, he came back, he said, okay, you want to work in this commando? I took out your card in the Schreibstube, the place where they keep the archive, everything. He took out my number with my name out and put in this name. He said, now, you'll never come out from here alive. You want to work in Transport Commander, this is it. I said, what kind of commander is it? You find out. You ask for it. This is it. You'll never come out alive from there.
So he had really tried to protect you first.
He really tried to protect me first. Next, I was spending there a few days in there, and all of a sudden, one morning, there were two shifts. I will try to explain to you how it was. They had two shifts of people, a night commander and a day commander. They call it Canada. Why they gave the name Canada, I find out later was abundance of foods, was whatever they had enough to eat. They called this group Canada. Next day in the morning, aroused, we came, transport came in. Transport came in. Shlomo says to me, the boy I work with, he said, that we used to wear the striped suit, especially, made nice, clean looking, everybody, just pick and pack. He says to me, don't talk to nobody. Even if you see a face for people, don't ask you question, play deaf and dumb.
So this transport was new people
coming in from somebody, a transport of people coming in. I think was a transport from the first transport I think I worked was Czechoslovakian transport or from Hungary. I don't remember exactly what it was, which transport it was, because I tried to erase this particular segment out of I can't get it out of my system. So I went to work, and they told me they were all standing, two people to open up the doors from a car. He told me not to say anything, so I always stand up until orders came. From far, a little further down was a ramp, was several Germans standing there, and an officer in the middle was standing like this. And I said, Shlomo, who is this? He said, this is Dr. Mengele. I said, what is he doing? He said, don't ask. You find out. This is a selection. I said, what kind of, don't ask. Don't talk to me now. Orders came from the guards, from the Germans standing around there. Aufmachen. We should open the gate. We open up the gates. My God, I see women, children, men. Hastily tell us to take, help him to get out. A woman asked a German officer there, I want to take my my luggage with me. He said, you don't have to worry about it. Your package will come after you. Crematorium 1 was not far away. You could see it not far away on the ramp was Crematorium 1. It was a beautiful red building, manicured grass outside. You could thought it's some kind of house there, some kind of beautiful house. The people were standing in line in front of Mengele, and I've seen people, he pointed with his finger, you did this way or that way, that way. And when I watched him, when Shlomo used to say to me, hurry up, come on, go in the car, to clean the cars and take out the luggage from the people, set it up, everything what we had to do. And then all of a sudden you're seeing a part of people were going in the direction to the camp. We were still working there. And a part of people used to go into this. He said, see, this is the crematorium. They're going to die. I said, I don't believe it. He said, this is the crematorium. I tell you, they're burning people. You see, in a few minutes later, you're going to see fire comes out. I did not believe it. Being on the ramp, working in Auschwitz, I did not believe. What does matter doing? Next day, I came home. We used to have a lot of, we used to take out from luggage to find some different things, food and this and that. We used to exchange for vodka. The only main thing, the boys were always drinking. Everybody, and I couldn't understand why they're drinking so much alcohol all the time. All the time tried to be, living like we had everything there, abundance of everything you ask for. You want vodka, you want salami, you want bread, you want cheese, whatever you want, you had it. I mean, there's nothing there to say we don't have.
How did you find out what you were told on the ramp was true?
How do I find
out what your friend told you about the crematorium?
Later, I found out because they took me one day, was not a transport coming in.
Yeah.
And they took us into assorted clothes in a special camp called for Bekleidungs or whatever they call it. And when the transport didn't come in, we used to go in there to assorted clothes. When I found thousands stacks of clothing, men's clothing, shoes, children's shoes, and all those things, I found that then I realized the situation, what's going on here.
And did you connect it with the drinking too?
I connected right away down with the thinking, why those boys doing that much, what's going on in there. I actually, when I was sitting one day, I came home, I could not take it after working so many transports. I was sitting there in the barrack, and I turned to my creator and I said, Rebbeinu Leute, tell me, did Yom Kippur, when we go to the shul, we all talk about for forgiveness, and it's the Day of Atonement. You tell who should die by fire, who should die by water, who should be killed that way, who should live, who should die. I'm asking you a question, tell me. Did all those people committed one crime, they all have to be burned? Tell me, what is it? On Passover night, we're sitting there, we're saying, we pick up a glass of wine, we say, but every generation somebody comes along and tries to destroy us, and you, Almighty God, saved us. Tell me, am I the one who to be saved? Am I more worthy than my parents, than thousands of other people? Why? Why did you put me in this particular situation? And my mind came. In the morning, when I used to go out in the barracks, I used to see a lot of bodies hanging on the electrical wires. My mind came through to commit suicide, just to get on the wire. I just could not take it any longer. It didn't work for me. I don't know why. I tried to. One night in the morning, I used to count the steps. How many steps is to the wire to go out at night and touch my hand? I walked out there one night, and I tried to go in there I counted up to 10 steps, and I stretched out my hand. I didn't find the wires. In this moment, I was afraid to die. I ran back to the barrack. I was afraid the guard on the top will shoot me. After this happened, I had a desire to live. My desire to live was so strong. I tried to do everything possible to come through this miserable, so I'd be able to tell the world actually what those people are doing.
What were you seeing every day that was actually happening?
I have seen every day people going to crematoriums, and every day people were burning. I have seen the guy who came up to the little window on a ladder and he put it a cyanide. He opened up the door and throw it in. I have seen clothing for thousands and thousands of people going to crematoriums. I walked, I took people off from the trains, and I saw them walking through crematoriums.
Sam, you're one of the few survivors of this kind of job, this task. How did that come to pass?
It's very hard to deal with. It's very hard for myself to think about it. If I have known, you see, the survival from a human being is so great. I thought those guys on the other side, they have so much food. If I go work for their commander, I might have a lot of food too, and I maybe survive. Not knowing actually that I'm going to see things, what they did actually happen. I have seen with my own eyes. I have seen the man throwing the gas. I have seen people crematorium. I have seen the way Mengele was reacting, sending somebody the right side of a person said, I want to go with this person in the family. When he's supposed to go to the gas chamber, he didn't mind. He even was a young person, he sent them on this side. It was the opposite, for example. He took a young person and decided to go to the camp. If somebody else he wants to go with this person, he did not allow. He always used to, when the other side to be dead, he sent everybody. It was like a stage play. We were the stage hands, cleaning, preparing. And he was the actor, the mean executive. You know, people used to come in, was like the actors. They didn't know what's going on, how the show going to end. They knew exactly how the performance going to end. Those people who arrived did not know. After being there of several transport, I finally realized when they burned the gypsies, about 27,000, 30,000 gypsies in the gypsy camp, when I saw the ovens burning day and night, I did not believe. I could not believe the situation a human being can do that to a human being.
But when did you realize that you too would be liquidated?
I knew I realized I was going to liquidate because the couple told me I never get out of there. Get out of there. What happened actually with us when they start, later they start to destroy the crematoriums in the 44s. They already, transport starts coming in. So all the Sonderkommando, the people who burned the bodies, they never came out alive. They used to burn them all the time. They used to change it. We didn't know what's going to happen to us, when they're going to burn us. If they demolished the crematoriums, the one crematorium I think was left. I don't remember exactly. We thought this is waiting for us. We're going to be finished because we were witnesses to the history. We saw it. We're the ones who sorted the clothes. We're the ones who saw the selections. We're the ones who saw the put the gas in the window up there. We saw Mengele day after day what he did. We actually didn't have to. I don't know what happened. One day my couple was a German Jew. His name was Fritz. He walked into the camp. He said, anybody who had hidden something, throw it in his head. Throw in the head. So I didn't know what happened. People had some, when they worked in the clothing, they used to find diamonds, old gold, and this and that. Used to bring it back in the barracks in exchange for vodka, for salami, for this, with other prisoners, or German guards, whatever might be the case. And he ran out again, and then he came back again. He said to us, everybody ran out from the barrack. We were in a special barrack, around with wires. Nobody could come in to us and get out. So when we were out, everybody said, anstehen, everybody should stand, go in line. So 4 of us were standing, make the group of 200. Was also a Scheißkommando there. So we all stand up, we didn't know. Then we tried to walk out. You see, when we walk out from camp, to the right side of us, going from camp to the Lagerstrasse, was to the train. When he will say left side, we know we're going to the crematorium. There was no two ways about it. Finally, when we came to the door, he said, Canada Commando. He saluted for me, tell him where we're going. The commander goes out. So we walk out, he said, rechtsum, right. When he said right, we start running, not walking. We ran. We actually ran. We were asking where we was running. We ran, we came to the ramp, was 5 or 6 cars standing there. And all the cars were open. We jumped in the cars, all of us, and we came in the cars, was bread laying there, some, portions of fast with cans of water. Maybe 10 minutes. Didn't take more than 10 minutes. The cars, they closed them outside. The guards were sitting on the top. The train started moving. We didn't know actually where we were going. We just looked out and said, then all of a sudden they probably changed the railroad. So the train went back and then went back. So you know how it is. We'll start thinking, oh, they're cheating us. They're supposedly to take us out. Now they're going to bring us back. Finally, this train started moving. You cannot imagine. You cannot have this feeling in this moment what we had when we felt that we're getting out of Birkenau. Because transport what came before, they spent just a few days in Birkenau, and they took him out to an Arbeitscamp. They did not know actually, and not seen actually what had happened. They just knew they were in Birkenau. Here you have a group of people what actually seen the situation, what happened there, when you can get out from a place like this. My God, we didn't care about any, we were jumping for joys in the car. When we got out of Auschwitz, they took us in to Sudetendeutschland, to Czechoslovakia somewhere, to a camp, and I was working. They were building then the V-2 rockets. We were supposed to build those big halls and set up those rockets. I spent there a little while, was a camp in the mountains up there, they call it Kaldwasser camp. I was there for a while. And then after that, they took us out from there. The Russian army was closing in on Czechoslovakia. They took us out from this camp. We were going on a march. They call it the Dead March. Finally, until they find our train. And from this train, they took us in to a concentration camp, Flossenburg. Flossenburg was a concentration camp that was run 90% by homosexuals. If you want to know how the concentration camps worked, you see, every prisoner who came to concentration camp had a triangle. You had a red triangle was a political prisoner, you have a black triangle was a criminal, you had a blue triangle was a homosexual. Like Buchenwald, for example, concentration camp, what I heard, I was not there, was run by political prisoners, because the Germans set it up so the prisoners themselves run the camps. Flossenburg was run by homosexuals. And some of the young boys had a very hard time there.
Mr. Goldberg, after you were in these camps, how did it come about that you yourself were liberated eventually?
I was liberated on the way to be executed. I was in a concentration camp called Mirdorf in the month of April. They took us out from Mirdorf. They said all the Jews austreten, all the Jews were there with a lot of soldiers, Ukrainian, Russians, Russian soldiers, POWs, Polacks. We would stay in line. The Polacks and the Russians used to push us out. Why don't you go out? You're a Jew. They took us in a train, and they told us they take us, some God, we're going on transport. Where we're going, we didn't know. On the way of the transport was a few days for traveling. Finally, they supposedly, they told us that we are free, we can go. So we ran out, then we were captured back by the soldiers. And they tried to shut us, to kill us right after Ramp Day after, because they called us we were liberated, and a lot of us ran away. So the front line was there, and a lot of our people were captured by the frontline soldiers, and they were shot on the street. Finally, they brought us all back, and the guards who captured us in the small town there told us, we said, the transport Führer, the guy who the transport, he told us we are free people, so we went. We didn't do any harm. He said, don't worry about it, you're going to be free in Tyrol. You're going to be free in Tyrol. I didn't understand what he's talking about Tyrol. When I came back to the car, finally I got jumped into the car, but was standing with machine guns trying to kill us. My friend told me to run zigzag, and somebody grabbed me and him on the top of other people in the car. So when we got into the car, but the mine came to Tyrol and was standing on the ramp, maybe going back and forth a few days, exhausted already, have that, and we didn't know what is what, and I didn't know, I hallucinated, I didn't know anything about it. I have a pair of wooden shoes holding under my head. One day, some two airplanes, fighter planes, came across and started shooting on the train. The aim was probably, what I find out later, the aim was to shut down the locomotive so they cannot go any further, because it was one line. Then by 9 o'clock in the morning, I was already half gone. I was vomiting, I just half gone. So we were sitting there in the train. Finally, we heard noises, and American tanks came along. Somebody said some soldiers are here, some strange-looking soldiers to liberate us. I didn't know that. They opened up the train. I was hallucinating. Somebody pulled me out from the car like this. And I was thinking in my mind they're pulling me out in Tyrol to be shot because I was already going. So I picked up the shoe, one shoe in the back, and I just took and I hit him like this. I told myself, last minute let me hit somebody. So the person who picked me up, holding his hand, he spoke to me in a broken German. He started crying. He says to me, I didn't come to kill you. I came to liberate you. I'm an American. This was what? They took me out. They took me right away. They built their field hospital.
You mentioned to me luck.
plain luck, nothing else. The day we were liberated, 9 o'clock in the morning, when the American 3rd Army, the 10th Division came to liberate us, and people, maybe, I will say about 600-700 people died 2-3 hours after the liberation because they started eating. This was luck too. I came across in the hospital, but American nurse told me, they gave me glucose in my arms to make me a little stronger. I weigh 78 pounds on the scale, lies that big in my body. They wash me, they clean me. And this lady says to me, one thing you should know, you're a very strong boy, you're very weak, you're undernourished, don't eat. Don't you eat. Just eat a little rice, a little milk if you can get, go to an American kitchen, a little water, don't eat hot food. If you're going to eat, you're going to die. A lot of them were not lucky, somebody to tell them what to do, and they died. I was lucky enough to tell me. So I kept it, and then God, after a few days, I came back to my strength, and thank God I'm here. I just want to tell you that people, it shouldn't happen again to nobody. People out there should watch out. Things like this should never, never happen again. And it's up to the people to do that. Let me read you something what I picked up a few weeks ago. I came across a little article which is very important. I want to mention about it. The record of a pastor, Martin Niemöller,
make it short.
The German theologian, has a desperate and modern name. First, he said, the Nazis went after the Jews, and I quote, but I was not a Jew, so I did not object. Then they went after the Catholics, but I was not a Catholic, so I did not object. Then they went after the trade unionists, but I was not a trade unionist, so I did not object. Then they came after me, and there was no one to object. This was everybody.